Part 1. The cold void of space stretched endlessly around the Zephyrian survey ship as it drifted through what was once called the Sol system. Commander Vextar stood at the main console, his forearms working the controls with practiced ease. His scaled green skin reflected the blue glow of the scanner displays. 300 years had passed since the humans vanished from this place, and now only dead planets and floating rocks remained. Vextar had seen many dead systems before. The galaxy was full of them. Species rose and fell like waves on a cosmic shore. The humans had been just another failed race, too aggressive for their own good. At least that was what the history book said. The Zephyrian Empire now controlled these outer territories, bringing peace and order where chaos once ruled. The scanner beeped softly. Vextar glanced at the reading and frowned. There was something unusual in the asteroid belt ahead. The metal signature was too clean, too organized. Natural space rocks did not form such patterns. He called his science officer over. Officer Clarth hurried to the console, her tentacles dancing over the secondary controls. She was young for a Zephyrian, barely past her first molting. Her excitement showed in the rapid color changes across her skin. She had never seen anything like this reading before. The object was massive, easily the size of a battle cruiser. It was hidden deep within a cluster of asteroids that had once been a moon. The metal composition was unknown to their databases. Even stranger, their sensors could barely detect it. If they had not been looking directly at this spot, they would have missed it completely. Vextar made the decision to investigate. The Zephyrian Empire paid well for new discoveries, especially anything related to lost technologies. He ordered the ship closer, carefully navigating between the floating rocks. As they approached, the object began to take shape on their screens. It was definitely artificial. The hull was smooth and dark, almost black against the starfield. Strange symbols were carved along its sides, symbols that matched the ancient human language in their historical files. This was a human ship, but unlike any they had seen before. Deep inside the mysterious vessel, systems that had slept for centuries began to wake up. Sensors detected the approaching Zephyrian ship. Ancient protocols activated. In the depths of the ship's core, cryogenic chambers hummed with new life. Captain Jake Morrison felt consciousness return slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a deep, dark ocean. His body ached in ways he had never experienced before. The cryogenic sleep had preserved him, but 300 years was a long time, even for advanced human technology. He tried to move and found his muscles weak and unsteady. A familiar voice spoke from the speakers around him. It was Lisa Carter, or rather, the artificial intelligence that carried her personality and memories. Lisa had been the Liberty's chief engineer before the final battle. Before everything went wrong. Before humanity lost the war they never saw coming. Lisa's voice was warm and comforting, just as it had been when she was alive. She told Morrison about the long sleep, about the centuries that had passed while he dreamed. She explained how the ship had remained hidden, watching and listening to galactic communications. The news she shared was devastating. Humanity was gone, not just defeated but completely erased from galactic records. The official history claimed that humans had destroyed themselves in civil wars. But Lisa had intercepted the real communications. The truth was much darker. The galaxy's major powers had formed a secret alliance. They had hunted down every human settlement, every colony, every ship. It had been systematic genocide carried out over decades. Morrison struggled to process this information. When he had entered the cryogenic chamber, humanity controlled dozens of star systems. They had been a rising power in galactic politics. How could they all be gone? How could no one remember what really happened? Lisa explained that the Liberty had been humanity's last desperate gamble. Earth's greatest scientists and engineers had built it in secret, using experimental technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. The ship was designed to be completely invisible to all known sensor types. It could hide for centuries if necessary, waiting for the right moment to act. The ship's manufacturing bays contained blueprints for weapons and defenses that no other species had ever seen. More importantly, the Liberty's artificial intelligence had spent 3 centuries analyzing every piece of technology it encountered through intercepted communications. It had learned, adapted, and improved upon designs from across the galaxy. Morrison slowly made his way to the bridge, his legs still unsteady from the long sleep. The Liberty was enormous, designed to house a crew of thousands. Now it was empty except for him and the AI personalities of his dead crewmates. Their voices echoed through the corridors as he passed, offering reports and updates as if they were still alive. On the bridge, Morrison looked out at the view screen. The Zephyrian ship was approaching, its hull gleaming in the light of the distant sun. He recognized the design from the intelligence files. These were the same aliens who had led the coalition against humanity. They were the architects of his species' destruction. For a moment, rage burned in his chest. He could destroy that ship with a single command. The Liberty's weapons were centuries ahead of anything the Zephyrians possessed. But Morrison was a military officer, trained to think strategically. One ship would not bring back his people or undo 3 centuries of lies. Lisa's voice interrupted his thoughts. She had been monitoring galactic communications and had discovered something important. There were still humans alive in the galaxy. Small groups had survived by hiding their true identity, living on remote worlds and space stations. They had spent generations pretending to be other species, afraid to reveal themselves. But now their time was running out. The Zephyrian Empire was planning something called a final cleansing. They intended to eliminate the last scattered humans who had escaped the original genocide. The operation would begin within days. Morrison felt a cold determination settle over him. He was possibly the last free human in the galaxy, captain of the most advanced warship ever built. His people were counting on him, even if they did not know he existed. The enemy thought they had won 3 centuries ago. They thought humanity was finished. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Liberty's engines began to hum with power that had not been felt for 300 years. Hidden weapon systems came online. The ghost ship was awakening, and with it, the fury of a species that refused to die. Morrison looked at the Zephyrian vessel on his screen and smiled grimly. The galaxy was about to remember why they had feared humanity enough to destroy them, and this time humans would be ready. Part 2. Morrison walked through the empty corridors of the Liberty, his footsteps echoing in the vast silence. The ship was like a floating city, with levels upon levels of chambers, laboratories, and workshops. Most areas had been sealed during the long sleep to preserve power, but now the ship was slowly coming back to life. He entered the main engineering section and stopped in amazement. The manufacturing base stretched out before him like metallic caverns. Robotic arms hung from the ceiling like sleeping giants. Assembly lines waited patiently for orders that had not come for 3 centuries. This was where humanity's greatest weapons had been born. Lisa's voice followed him as he explored. She explained how the Liberty had been designed not just as a warship, but as a mobile factory. It could build anything from small fighter craft to massive battle stations. The plans stored in its memory banks contained designs that other species could not even imagine. The ship's artificial intelligence had not been idle during the long years. It had intercepted thousands of alien transmissions, studying their technology and learning their weaknesses. Every innovation the galaxy had produced in 3 centuries had been analyzed and improved upon. The Liberty now possessed weapons that combined the best of human engineering with alien concepts, creating something entirely new. Morrison reached the primary weapon control room and gasped. The display showed energy readings that seemed impossible. The main cannon could punch through a planet's crust. The defensive shields could deflect the combined firepower of an entire fleet. But most impressive were the smaller systems, the ones designed for precision rather than destruction. Meanwhile, outside the hidden ship, Commander Vextar was growing frustrated. His crew had been trying to scan the mysterious vessel for hours, but their equipment kept giving contradictory readings. Sometimes the object appeared to be solid metal. Other times it seemed to phase in and out of existence like a ghost. Vextar ordered his ship closer. The Zephyrian Empire had strict protocols about unknown vessels, especially ones found in dead systems. Any discovery could contain valuable technology or dangerous weapons. It was his duty to investigate no matter how strange the readings appeared. The human ship hung motionless among the asteroids, dark and silent. Its hull was smooth as glass, unmarked by the impacts that should have scarred it after centuries in space. No lights showed through its windows. No energy signatures betrayed its presence. To all appearances, it was just another piece of ancient debris. Vextar decided to board the vessel. His security team prepared their cutting tools and scanning equipment. They had dealt with derelict ships before. Most were empty hulks, stripped clean by salvagers or destroyed by time. But occasionally they found something valuable, something that made the risk worthwhile. The boarding craft approached the Liberty's hull and extended its docking clamps. The metal connections locked into place with satisfying clicks. The cutting beams activated, preparing to slice through the outer airlock. But something unexpected happened. The beams simply stopped working when they touched the hull material. Officer Clarth checked her instruments in confusion. The cutting tools were functioning perfectly, but they could not even scratch the surface of the alien ship. The metal seemed to absorb the energy and disperse it harmlessly. She had never seen anything like it. Inside the Liberty, Morrison watched the aliens' attempts through the external cameras. He could have opened the airlock for them, but he preferred to observe their capabilities first. Their technology was impressive by galactic standards, but it was crude compared to human engineering. The hull material had been designed to resist weapons far more powerful than their simple cutting beams. After an hour of failed attempts, the Zephyrians finally managed to find an auxiliary airlock that responded to their signals. They did not realize that Morrison had allowed them to find it. He wanted them inside the ship, but on his terms. The boarding party consisted of 6 Zephyrian soldiers, armed with energy weapons and protected by environmental suits. They moved cautiously through the airlock, their lights cutting through the darkness of the Liberty's corridors. Everything seemed dead and empty. They advanced deeper into the ship, marveling at the strange architecture. The passages were designed for human proportions, smaller than what most galactic species preferred. The walls were covered with symbols and markings that their translation software could not decipher. This was definitely a human vessel, but unlike any in their historical records. As the soldiers explored, Morrison activated the ship's passive monitoring systems. Invisible scanners analyzed their equipment, their biology, their communication methods. Within minutes, the Liberty's computers had learned everything about Zephyrian technology and begun developing countermeasures. The boarding party reached what appeared to be a main corridor junction. Suddenly, the lights came on. Not harsh emergency lighting, but a soft, warm glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The soldiers raised their weapons, expecting an attack, but nothing happened. Then they heard it. A voice speaking in perfect Zephyrian coming from speakers they could not see. It was Morrison, using the ship's translation systems to communicate with them. He spoke calmly, almost conversationally, as if welcoming guests to his home. Morrison told them they were aboard a human vessel, the last of its kind. He explained that he was the sole survivor of his crew, awakened from a long sleep to find his people extinct. The Zephyrians listened in shock. According to all galactic records, humans had been extinct for centuries. How could one still be alive? The alien soldiers tried to contact their ship, but their communications were being jammed. Not blocked exactly, but carefully filtered. Morrison allowed them to send basic status reports, but prevented them from revealing the ship's true capabilities. He wanted their commanders to know they had found something important, but not how dangerous it really was. Morrison continued talking to the boarding party as they moved through the ship. He showed them glimpses of human technology, just enough to demonstrate its superiority without revealing its full potential. A doorway that opened to their thoughts. Gravity fields that could be adjusted at will. Materials that seemed to repair themselves. The Zephyrians were amazed and terrified in equal measure. This technology was centuries ahead of their own. If humans had possessed such capabilities, how had they been defeated? Why had they allowed themselves to be wiped out? Morrison did not answer those questions directly. Instead, he told them about the hidden human colonies, the survivors who had lived in fear for generations. He spoke of the planned cleansing operation, the final attempt to eliminate his species completely. His voice remained calm, but there was something beneath it that made the aliens nervous. As the boarding party prepared to leave, Morrison made them an offer. He would allow them to depart safely and return to their ship. In exchange, they would carry a message to their superiors. The message was simple but chilling. Humanity had returned to the galaxy and they remembered everything that had been done to them. Part 3. The Liberty moved through space like a shadow, invisible to every sensor and scanner in the galaxy. Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars shift as the ship traveled faster than light, without using any known method of propulsion. The human drive system was based on principles that other species had never discovered, bending space itself rather than pushing through it. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrian boarding party returned to their ship with Morrison's message. Commander Vexistar had immediately contacted his superiors, sending detailed reports about the human vessel and its impossible technology. The response from Zephyrian Command had been swift and decisive. Every available warship in the sector was being recalled to hunt down the Liberty. Trade routes were being monitored. Patrol schedules were doubled. The entire Zephyrian military machine was mobilizing to find one human and his ghost ship. But Morrison was not hiding anymore. The Liberty appeared at the edge of the Kepler system, home to a major Zephyrian military base. It materialized from nowhere, its dark hull reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. The base's sensors detected it immediately, and alarms began wailing across the station. Admiral Thekmore commanded the base, and he had been briefed about the human ship. He ordered his fastest interceptors to launch while preparing the station's main weapons. This time they would be ready. This time the ghost ship would not escape. But Morrison had no intention of fighting. He simply wanted to be seen. The Liberty hung motionless at the system's edge, well beyond weapon range while Zephyrian ships raced toward it. The human vessel's scanners recorded everything about their technology, their formations, their tactical responses. Every piece of data was stored and analyzed. When the interceptors were halfway to the Liberty's position, the human ship simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone as if it had never existed. The frustrated Zephyrian pilots found empty space where their target had been moments before. Their sensors showed nothing, not even residual energy traces. Admiral Thekmore stared at his displays in disbelief. Ships did not just disappear like that. There had to be some explanation, some technology that could account for what he had witnessed. But his scientists had no answers. The human vessel seemed to operate outside the known laws of physics. Morrison smiled as he watched the confusion through the Liberty's rear cameras. This was exactly what he wanted. Fear and uncertainty were weapons more powerful than any cannon. The Zephyrians expected a direct assault, a conventional battle they could understand and counter. Instead, they were facing something that challenged their basic understanding of reality. The Liberty's next appearance was even more unsettling. It materialized inside the Proxima system, directly above the capital world of the Zephyrian Empire. For exactly 30 seconds, it hung in orbit like a dark omen, visible to millions of citizens on the planet below. Then it vanished again, leaving no trace except the terrified reports of witnesses. The psychological impact was enormous. If the human ship could appear anywhere at any time, then nowhere was safe. The Zephyrian government tried to suppress news of the incidents, but word spread quickly through unofficial channels. Panic began to spread across their territory. Morrison was following tactics developed by the human military centuries ago. The archived personality of Admiral Ryan Bell guided his strategy through the ship's computers. Humans had always understood that warfare was as much about psychology as firepower. Make the enemy afraid, make them doubt themselves, and they would defeat themselves more efficiently than any weapon could. The Liberty began appearing at random locations throughout Zephyrian space. Sometimes it would scan a military installation and leave. Other times it would simply observe a trade convoy before disappearing. It never attacked, never fired a shot, but its presence was becoming a constant source of terror. Trade captains began refusing to travel certain routes. Military patrols ventured out in larger groups, wasting resources on protection against an enemy that might not even be there. The Zephyrian economy started showing signs of strain as fear disrupted normal operations. Morrison studied the intelligence reports that Lisa intercepted from their communications. The Zephyrian leadership was fracturing under pressure. Some wanted to negotiate with the human. Others demanded an all-out military response. A few suggested abandoning their outer territories entirely until the threat could be understood. Dr. Amanda Pierce's research, preserved in the Liberty's database, had identified this weakness centuries ago. Zephyrian society was built on consensus and collective decision-making. Under normal circumstances, this made them stable and predictable. But sustained stress caused their leadership to fragment into competing factions. The Liberty's campaign intensified. Morrison began targeting specific individuals appearing near ships carrying important Zephyrian officials. He would scan their vessels thoroughly, demonstrating that he could identify and track anyone he chose. The message was clear. No one was beyond his reach. One particularly effective incident occurred when the Liberty appeared next to transport ship Vela, carrying the Zephyrian Minister of Defense. The human vessel matched the transport's course and speed for nearly an hour, flying in perfect formation as if mocking their escort fighters. When the Liberty finally disappeared, the minister was found unconscious in his cabin, apparently having suffered a stress-induced collapse. Meanwhile, Morrison was preparing for the next phase of his plan. The Liberty's manufacturing bays were working constantly, building new equipment and weapons based on the intelligence gathered from Zephyrian systems. The ship was learning and adapting with each encounter, becoming more dangerous with every passing day. The Zephyrian military response was becoming increasingly desperate. They tried laying traps, positioning entire fleets at strategic locations. They attempted to predict the Liberty's movements using computer models. They even brought in specialists from other species hoping for fresh insights into human psychology. Nothing worked. Morrison always seemed to be one step ahead, appearing where they least expected and vanishing before they could respond. The human ship was like a ghost that haunted their civilization, a reminder of the species they thought they had destroyed. The most unnerving incident occurred when the Liberty appeared simultaneously at 3 different locations, hundreds of light years apart. Either the human had somehow duplicated his ship, or their understanding of physics was even more incomplete than they had realized. The implications were terrifying. As reports of the ghost ship spread beyond Zephyrian territory, other species began to take notice. Old alliances were questioned. Ancient fears resurfaced. The galaxy was beginning to remember why they had been so afraid of humanity that they had united to destroy them. Morrison watched it all from the Liberty's bridge, satisfied with the growing chaos. His people were still in danger, but the balance of power was shifting. Soon it would be time to reveal his true capabilities and show the galaxy what humanity had become during their long exile among the stars. Part 4. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity was not extinct. The species that had been erased from history books was alive and more dangerous than ever. On 1,000 worlds, in 1,000,000 conversations, people whispered about the ghost ship that appeared from nowhere and vanished without a trace. The Zephyrian Empire was crumbling under the pressure. Their military leaders could not agree on how to fight an enemy they could not find. Their politicians blamed each other for the original decision to hunt humans to extinction. Fear was eating away at their civilization from within, just as Morrison had planned. But the Liberty's campaign of terror was having effects beyond Zephyrian space. Other species that had participated in the human genocide centuries ago began to panic. The Andromedans recalled their trade fleets. The Centauri Federation started building new defensive installations. Everyone was preparing for a war they did not understand. Morrison decided it was time for the next phase of his mission. The hidden human colonies were still in danger, and the planned cleansing operation was moving forward despite the chaos. He had to act quickly if he wanted to save the last survivors of his people. The Liberty appeared in the Tau Ceti system without warning, materializing near a small mining station on the edge of inhabited space. The station looked like any other industrial facility, but Morrison's sensors detected something the Zephyrians had missed. Human life signs were hidden beneath false readings and energy shields. Morrison opened a communication channel to the station, speaking in the ancient human language that had not been heard in open space for 3 centuries. The response was immediate and emotional. Voices cried out in joy and disbelief, welcoming him like a savior returned from the dead. The leader of the hidden colony was Dr. Karen Woods, a scientist whose grandparents had fled Earth during the final genocide. She had spent her entire life hiding among alien populations, pretending to be something she was not. Her people had survived by being invisible, by never revealing their true nature to anyone. Dr. Woods told Morrison about the other hidden colonies scattered across the galaxy. There were thousands of humans still alive, living in secret on remote worlds and space stations. They had preserved human culture and knowledge through generations of careful secrecy. They had also developed new technologies, innovations born from necessity and desperation. But their time was running out. The Zephyrian cleansing operation would begin within days. Special hunting fleets were already moving toward systems where human survivors might be hiding. This time, the aliens would not stop until every last human was found and eliminated. Morrison began evacuating the Tau Ceti colony immediately. The Liberty's transport bays could hold thousands of people, and its manufacturing systems quickly produced additional life support equipment. But as he worked, he made an incredible discovery. These humans were not just survivors hiding from their enemies. They were innovators who had spent centuries developing technologies that complemented his own. Colonel Steve Parker commanded the colony's small defense force. His people had created stealth systems that made the Liberty's invisibility look crude by comparison. They had developed weapons that could disrupt alien neural systems without causing permanent harm. Most importantly, they had learned how to hide in plain sight, a skill that would be invaluable in the coming conflict. Working together, Morrison and the hidden colonists began planning something audacious. Instead of simply rescuing the scattered human populations, they would turn the tables on their enemies. The Zephyrians expected to hunt helpless refugees. Instead, they would find themselves facing a coordinated resistance that had been preparing for this moment for generations. The Liberty's manufacturing bays began producing new vessels based on designs from the hidden colonies. These ships were smaller than the Great Warship, but they incorporated lessons learned from centuries of hiding and survival. Each one was a perfect fusion of ancient human military technology and modern innovation. As word spread through secret channels, other hidden colonies began revealing themselves. Humans emerged from asteroid mines, deep space stations, and remote planetary settlements. They had been waiting for this moment, hoping that someday their people would return to reclaim their place in the galaxy. Morrison was amazed by what humanity had become during their long exile. They had not just survived, they had evolved. The pressure of living in secret had forced them to develop new ways of thinking, new approaches to problems that other species could not imagine. They were still human, but they were also something more. The Zephyrian hunting fleets launched their cleansing operation exactly on schedule. They arrived at the target systems expecting to find helpless refugees and abandoned settlements. Instead, they discovered that their prey had vanished completely. Every human colony they attacked was empty, evacuated hours before their arrival. But the humans had not simply fled. As the Zephyrian ships spread out to search for survivors, they found themselves being watched. Invisible vessels shadowed their movements, recording their tactics and analyzing their weaknesses. The hunters had become the hunted without even realizing it. The trap was sprung at the Centauri Nexus, a strategic hyperspace junction that connected dozens of star systems. The Zephyrians had gathered their largest battle fleet there, convinced that they could corner the Liberty in the confined space between dimensions. Admiral Thekmore himself commanded the operation, determined to destroy the ghost ship once and for all. Morrison brought the Liberty to the Nexus exactly as the Zephyrians expected. The human warship appeared in the center of their formation, seemingly trapped by hundreds of enemy vessels. The Zephyrian admiral smiled in triumph as he gave the order to fire, but Morrison was not trapped. He was exactly where he wanted to be. As the enemy weapons charged, space around the Nexus began to shimmer with new arrivals. The hidden human fleet materialized from nowhere, dozens of ships appearing simultaneously in perfect coordination. The Zephyrians suddenly realized they were not surrounding one human vessel. They were surrounded by an entire fleet of ships that should not exist. The humans had turned their own trap against them, using the confined space of the Nexus to prevent escape. The battle was swift and decisive. Human weapons designed on principles the Zephyrians could not understand tore through their formations. Energy beams that ignored shields, missiles that could think and adapt, defensive systems that turned enemy fire back on itself. But Morrison did not seek total destruction. As Zephyrian ships exploded around them, he opened communication channels to the survivors. His message was simple and terrifying. Humanity could destroy their entire civilization if they chose. They had the power to erase the Zephyrians from existence, just as the aliens had tried to do to them. Instead, Morrison offered terms for surrender. The genocide would end immediately. All hunting operations would cease. The surviving humans would be left in peace to rebuild their civilization. In exchange, Morrison would spare the Zephyrian Empire and allow them to continue existing. Admiral Thekmore, his flagship burning around him, had no choice but to accept. Part 5. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the Zephyrian Empire formally surrendered to humanity. The ceremony took place aboard the Liberty, with Admiral Thekmore standing before Morrison in the ship's grand conference hall. The defeated alien commander signed documents that would reshape the balance of power across known space. Morrison stood at the head of the table, no longer just a captain awakened from ancient sleep, but Admiral Morrison of the reborn human Stellar Republic. Behind him stood representatives from dozens of hidden colonies, men and women who had emerged from centuries of hiding to reclaim their heritage. The human species had not just survived, they had returned stronger than ever. The surrender terms were surprisingly generous. Morrison had learned from history that crushing a defeated enemy completely often led to future wars. Instead, he offered the Zephyrians a chance to rebuild their society on new principles. They would pay reparations to help establish human settlements, but they would not be enslaved or destroyed. Dr. Karen Woods had been chosen as the primary negotiator for the new human government. Her experience living among aliens gave her unique insights into galactic politics. She worked tirelessly with representatives from various species to establish treaties that would prevent future genocides while protecting the rights of all sentient beings. B. Most surprising development came from an unexpected source. Elder Kethvar of the Andromedan Collective requested a private meeting with Morrison. The ancient philosopher had lived through the original human genocide and claimed to have opposed it from the beginning. He offered his people's knowledge and resources to help humanity rebuild. Morrison was skeptical at first. The Andromedans had participated in the coalition that destroyed his people. But Elder Kethavar's sincerity seemed genuine, and his species possessed advanced scientific knowledge that could benefit everyone. After careful consideration, Morrison agreed to a limited partnership based on mutual respect and shared research. The dissolution of the Zephyrian Empire created opportunities for other species as well. Many member worlds declared independence, forming smaller governments that were easier to manage and less likely to pursue aggressive expansion. The galaxy became more diverse and decentralized, which Morrison believed would make future genocides more difficult to organize. Captain Jerry Sullivan took command of the first new human warship to be built in 3 centuries. The vessel combined Liberty technology with innovations from the hidden colonies, creating something that was both familiar and revolutionary. Sullivan had been one of the rescued colonists, a military officer whose family had preserved human naval traditions for generations. The new ship was christened the USS Freedom, and it represented hope for the future rather than vengeance for the past. Sullivan's crew included humans from across the galaxy, people who had never seen Earth but carried its memory in their hearts. They would patrol the trade routes and protect civilian vessels from pirates and raiders. Morrison established the human capital on New Terra, a world in the former Zephyrian territory that possessed ideal conditions for human life. The planet had been uninhabited for centuries, waiting for people who could appreciate its forests and oceans. It became a symbol of humanity's rebirth, a place where children could grow up without hiding their true nature. The Liberty remained humanity's flagship, but it was no longer a vessel of war. Morrison converted many of its weapon systems into research laboratories and manufacturing centers. The great ship became a mobile embassy, traveling between star systems to negotiate treaties and establish diplomatic relationships. Lisa Carter's artificial intelligence played a crucial role in the transition. Her personality matrix had preserved not just technical knowledge, but human values and traditions that might otherwise have been lost. She helped design educational programs that taught rescued humans about their heritage while preparing them for life in a changed galaxy. The most remarkable discovery came when Morrison ordered a deep space survey of the galaxy's outer regions. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures that matched human technology in areas far beyond known space. The Liberty was not the only ship that had survived the genocide. Other human vessels had been hidden in the void between galaxies, their crews sleeping through the centuries. Captain Tony Garcia awakened aboard the USS Defiance, another dreadnought-class vessel that had been hidden in a nebula cluster. His ship carried 10,000 survivors in cryogenic sleep, including some of Earth's greatest scientists and engineers. The reunion with Morrison was emotional for both men, longtime friends who had not seen each other for 300 years. More ships continued to emerge from hiding as Morrison sent signals into deep space using frequencies only humans would recognize. The USS Endeavour appeared from the galactic rim with a cargo hold full of preserved Earth artifacts. The USS Horizon brought news of human colonies that had survived in distant star clusters by traveling far beyond the reach of their enemies. Within 2 years of Morrison's awakening, the human population had grown from a few thousand hidden survivors to nearly 1 million people scattered across dozens of worlds. They established universities to preserve human knowledge, farms to feed their growing communities, and shipyards to build vessels for exploration and defense. The galaxy's other species watched these developments with a mixture of admiration and concern. Humanity had demonstrated incredible military capabilities, but they had also shown restraint and wisdom in victory. Many governments sent ambassadors to New Terra, seeking trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Morrison often stood on the bridge of the Liberty, looking out at the stars and thinking about the long journey that had brought him to this moment. He was no longer the last human in the galaxy, no longer a lone guardian of a dead species. His people had reclaimed their place among the stars, and they were building something better than what had existed before. The final surprise came when Dr. Woods made an announcement that stunned even Morrison. Her research teams had been analyzing the technology recovered from various human ships and hidden colonies. They had discovered something remarkable. The scattered survivors had not just preserved human knowledge, they had advanced it far beyond what Earth had achieved. Before the genocide, the combination of desperate innovation and centuries of careful development had produced breakthroughs that no single group could have accomplished alone. Humans now possessed technology that surpassed anything else in the galaxy, but more importantly, they had learned to use that power responsibly. Morrison smiled as he watched new human ships launch from the orbital shipyards around New Terra. Each vessel carried explorers and diplomats rather than weapons and soldiers. Humanity had been given a second chance, and they were determined to use it wisely. The galaxy had trembled at human might, but it would prosper under human protection. The species that had once been hunted to extinction had returned not as conquerors but as guardians of peace and freedom for all sentient life.